Hello Internet, welcome back to Tromsø Twilight, the channel where I, Vincent, talk to you, the abyss, about books, movies, music I enjoy, find interesting, or a combination of the two. Sometime in the early 2000s, my friend Margot Broom, who's a music producer, came to visit me in my flat in South London, where I lived back then, and she was looking at my CDs, and even though we have really quite different tastes, we had loads of the same albums. And she said, isn't it amazing how music marketing works, that we've all got the same records in our house? And I've thought about this often since, because we do, a lot of us have the same albums. Like everybody's got a Jimi Hendrix album, everybody's got a Led Zeppelin album, everybody's got a Nirvana album. But we also all have some records that maybe none of our friends that we've ever met have even heard of, or other people don't seem to own them. Some stuff you can't even find, difficult even to trace online. So I wanted to talk about some of the more obscure records that I've got in my collection and share them a little bit with you, because I thought that'd be fun, it'd be interesting, and maybe you can do the same in return and let me know about some stuff I've never heard of. On YouTube, if you play other people's music, you can very easily get an automatic copyright strike, which is why normally when I talk about music on here, I don't play any snippets. But I'm going to take a risk today and try and play just through my computer microphone. No decent technology, no good sound, but just to give you an idea, little clips of these albums so that you will get an idea of the general sonic universe that they exist within. And because I know I've got quite an eclectic group of people watching this channel, people with very different tastes and interests, I've tried to pull stuff out of many of the different genres and sections in my record collection, and maybe there's something for different people. Now, the first one is quite a personal thing for me. My father, when I was younger, was a blues and rock and roll singer in England. And he was into a lot of blues and big band and rock and roll music. And this was one of his albums that I was allowed to take from his collection, Confessin the Blues by Walter Brown with the J. McShann Band. Now, Walter Brown is not a very well-known blues singer. In fact, even on the back of the record, they start the text about him by saying, "In truth, Walter Brown will not go down in the history of jazz and or blues as one of its great vocal artistes." But he cut a single with the J. McShann Band, and the J. McShann Band were a sort of blues jazz party dance band, a little bit like Louis Jordan's band, if you've ever heard of that, kind of like a small band playing music that is a little bit like big band music. He made a single with them, Confessin the Blues, which became a hit at the time. So they did a few studio sessions together and they cut some records in 1949. This edition, though, was published in 81. And this is the kind of music, that you would go and see with your friends back in the day, a live party band to go and dance to. And I actually really love this kind of music because it has both a soul to it at the same time as it's playful. I like this very relaxed style of singing that Walter Brown has that actually kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the ways that my dad would sing slow blues. I also really think that the solo work by the musicians in the band is very tasteful. So I'm going to play you just at the beginning of the first track, which is What Evil Have I Done, and then a little bit of a solo from a track called Suppressing the Blues.
Well, it's a pity I'm so lonesome when everybody else is having so much fun. Well, it's a pity I'm so lonesome when everybody else is having so much fun. Seems like the cards are stacked against me. I often wonder, Lord, what evil have I done?
And then here's that guitar solo that I promised. It's, to me, just interesting the choices that the guitarist makes. Alright, the the second record couldn't be more different. In about 2005, I was living in Paris, and my friend Guillaume, who I've talked about on this channel before, he introduced me to a lot of interesting music. He used to play in a grindcore band. He took me to see this band Monarch, and this is their album Omens, which came out a few years later in 2011. Monarch were the first doom band that I ever saw, and they were extremely slow. They were playing in a squat, extremely slow, crunching, heavy music, but like they would hit a chord and they would just draw it out, and there would be feedback forever, and then they would hit another chord. I didn't even know how they were they counting it, were they just watching each other? And they had a female vocalist. What's her? I can't remember her name now, but it will be on here. Amelia Bresson, who just was like screaming over the top in a way that at the time I'd never heard. And I remember afterwards asking Guillaume, what emotions do you get when you were watching this band? Because for me, like, music was all about emotion. And he said, for me, it's just a physical thing. And that totally changed my relationship to music and opened up like a whole load of new genres for me. And Monarch got a little bit more famous. They were totally unknown at the time I saw them, but I saw them play in London a few years later, and some people did come to the shows, so they definitely had an audience within Europe. I bought this album online and I got like a transparent version. This is a little snippet from a track called Blood Seeress, which is the first track on the record. There's actually quite a lot faster than they were playing when I saw them. But anyway, you get an idea. This album is like monumental in sound. I really love it. Just a little clip from the track Black Comes the Sun, which is a little bit more like what they did when I saw them live. Okay, for those people who find doom metal a little bit too intense, in around 2017, I went to a concert in Bergen, and me and my two friends were among, I think, 6 or 8 people in the audience. It was an American musician called Molly Burch. I don't think Molly Burch is totally obscure, but she is certainly not particularly well known. I remember thinking when I saw her that she was like a sort of indie rock version of Lana Del Rey. She was drawing obviously on Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, maybe even Buddy Holly, but in a kind of indie rock band. Like, she was playing guitar, and I think she had a 4-piece. I really, really loved the concert. It was like, this is a thing that I often think about when I've been a musician myself and played live. Like, sometimes you're really disappointed because there's almost nobody in the room, but of the people in the room, maybe that's their favourite ever concert. This is the opening of one of my favourite songs by her, which is called Try.
1, 2, 3. Don't make me
I'm a little bit nervous about playing more of this Molly Burch album in case I get a copyright strike, but you get an idea of what it sounds like, and the record is called Please Be Mine. The next one is a compilation that I've never heard of before or since I found it in a record store. If you're interested in kind of niche music compilations, maybe you do know about this one. It's called Jungle Exotica Volume 2, and this is an album that is made up of music that was created for a particular type of sort of American strip show or jungle exploitation movie, or like the overlap between the two. So you see this incredible artwork that was made, poster work that was made for these type of films, and apparently it was also a kind of striptease genre. Now this stuff is extremely problematic. Like it's all about kind of white women kidnapped in the jungle and such like. And the music is a sort of gumbo rock and roll, almost surf influence type music that's also supposed to sound vaguely tribal or like jungle music, even though it's made by American musicians. So the type of thing that you really wouldn't get away with making at this point in history, although the way things are going, you know, this will probably be mainstream in about 2 years. This is a track called See the Cheetah by Big Dame Hunters.
See the cheetah, baby.
And this is Jungle by the Nightcats. I quite often put this on when people come over to visit, and they quite often tell me to turn it off. So the next album is by a now defunct Trondheim punk band called Vi Gruer Oss, which means something like we are dreading or we are not looking forward to. They're a kind of anarchist, left-wing punk band, hardcore inspired band. They have really great lyrics if you can understand Norwegian. This album is called Pønkpopulistisk propaganda, and it has like a really cool little book that comes with it. An interesting story about the song that you're going to listen to now is that their vocalist, I think it was, injured himself when he was drunk, and he had to be in a wheelchair for a period of time, and they became aware as a band that the centre of Trondheim was not easy to access if you were in a wheelchair. So they wrote a protest song called something like Wheelchair Friendly Central Town Now. And I'm actually going to play this one in its entirety because, like a lot of bands of this ilk, some of their songs are very, very short. They're kind of like if Crass had a sense of humour. So if you found that interesting, I'm going to do a new video in not too long about Scandinavian albums and bands that you may not have heard of. So like and subscribe, or at least subscribe if you'd like to see that when it comes out. There'll be some punk, there'll be some rock, there'll also be some classical music in that. We've got 2 records left. The next one is The Falling by Carmel. Now Carmel is the vocalist in this group that you see on the back, which is a kind of jazz band. This is her, and this album to me It's from the 80s, and it's like trip hop before trip hop existed. I feel like Massive Attack could have been influenced by it. I don't know. I never meet anybody who's heard this album, but it's absolutely beautiful, and I want to play a little bit of the title track, The Falling. Sort of reminds me of Goldfrapp a little bit, reminds me of Massive Attack, and then it does the most beautiful thing with the bass line. So 86 this album came out. Last time I checked, it wasn't even on streaming, although I've stopped using streaming. I don't think this album is on there. To me, her singing is almost as exceptional or as unusual as someone like Alison Goldfrapp or Kate Bush. Yeah, if you see it cheap in the record shop, pick it up. It's great. Right, the last one, I don't know if it totally counts as obscure because this is a composer who is very recognised, but it's difficult to get hold of this album. This is the 5th Symphony by Valentin Silvestrov, and Valentin Silvestrov is my favourite classical composer. I don't know a whole lot about classical music. What I do know is mostly 19th and 20th century. He is a religiously inspired composer from the Soviet Union. He was born in Kiev, which is now in Ukraine, and he made a lot of different types of music throughout his career. Most of it is not available on vinyl, at least not in the West. I had to find this online and order it. It's all in Russian. And a lot of it is very beautiful and abstract and almost like tonal painting, but it opens with this very striking chord, very dramatic, and then kind of becomes a little bit more harmonic. It's just so beautiful. It could be cinematic, or it could kind of guide you through an inner journey. Silvestrov's made so much beautiful music. His choral music is incredible. He's actually still alive, and he has a Bandcamp. So if you're interested in him and want to support him, you can buy most of his music on there. I'll link it in the bio, in the description, I mean. Alright, so that was a little journey through some of my more obscure vinyl records. I'll do it again if you'd be interested, and I am going to do one for Scandinavian musicians, bands, composers, as I mentioned, mostly Norwegian, but some stuff from Denmark as well. Thanks for joining me. I hope this was interesting. I hope you had a good time. I don't know if you can even really hear what I've been playing on the records, but I hope you got an idea, and I'll see you again soon.